CapeXit increasingly makes strides towards secession from the Republic. The deniers and feeble-minded start to sweat the reality, slowly sinking in of the possibility of an independent Cape. In this, the second edition on Cape Independence, we have a look at the requirements for the province to become a sovereign state, and which laws permit this both nationally and internationally. This is CapeXit, Road to Independence. Let's get to it. The principle of who, where, why, and how applies. The who was explained in my previous video, which you can go have a look at if you're so pleased to do. But 1,555,976 of the registered voters in the Western Cape. The where is the geographical area of the current Western Cape province, after which the same principles may be applied for the Northern Cape. It is more sensible to initially work with recognized geographical areas. The parts of the Eastern Cape bordering on the Western Cape, which also complies, may later have the same claim, as the criteria for independence is not subject to final borders. Well, for the Eastern and Northern Cape to follow suit, it is ultimately dependent on the will of the majority of the people, and at this stage down the road, the ANC has overwhelming support from the residents in the Eastern and Northern Cape. I believe we should focus on the Western Cape, who has the strongest case to become a sovereign state and who is proactively working on independence for their province. It is possible for the two other provinces to realize there to be no future with the ANC, and when that happens, they are more than welcome to lay the same claim as the Western Cape. So with reference to the criteria for independence, these are rather clear from various documented sources, namely a defined territory, a permanent population, a government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states or countries. CapeXit maintains that further to the above requirements, the following are further qualifications for independence. Must be an established cultural group in the region. Majority of Kaaplanders speak Afrikaans and share a similar culture. The Cape has a different culture to the rest of South Africa. History of marginalization. Broad-based black economic empowerment, the deletion of cultural history, burning of statues and buildings. With the current situation in South Africa, proof is pouring in daily. Have an independent system of government. This is in the process of being put together. There are various committees active and involved in putting the shadow government together. This process is in an advanced stage. Prove economic stability without bankrupting the part of the country they are leaving. Already proven. The Cape can function effectively on its own, as could the rest of South Africa. Prove there is no alternative. With the growing evidence, see to above, this is getting easier to prove daily. Group, nation and international support. International condemnation and support is growing. So is the group and nation support. I can see the ANC nostalgia welling up in the eyes of the contentious voter of the ruling party, and how the rapid onset realization of reality diminished the dreams the EFF had of a united Africa with no borders when talking of these absolutely obtainable requirements. I can guarantee that when the independence movement gains the traction it requires to start the process, it will be the source of much spirited debates, or at least the attempt to shut down the discourse as per usual with any topic threatening the classical utilitarian ways of the ruling party. But that's just my opinion. The why is becoming clearer every day, whether it is from ignoring of minority rights, the open plunder of taxpayers' money, the public threats to kill a boer, kill a farmer, the hourly waste and disregard of life in gang and drug turf wars, or the President of South Africa internationally stating that assets will be taken without compensation. The why can fill hundreds of pages with legitimate reasons to gain independence. This might be a shocking revelation, but allow me to put it blunt and simply so everyone has the equal opportunity to grasp the concept. Expropriation without compensation will never be accepted by the people it is aimed at. Envision this scenario. Your father was a mentally unstable, raging alcoholic. He kills a boatload of people and manages to evade the long arm of the law. Eventually, he dies and the manhunt comes to an end. Now the focus shifts to you. You are convicted of your father's past atrocities, regardless of the fact you had nothing to do with his choices. Would you go willingly as an innocent individual? This will end up causing more problems than it solves. The lazy-minded ANC has no better idea. They will always be stuck in the past and use it as a promise of a better future. Just remember, it's easier to fool someone than to convince them they've been fooled. That leaves us with how. It is necessary to have a look at which laws, both national and international, would allow us to claim independence via a referendum. South African Constitution, Article 235 of the Republic of South Africa's Constitution states, "The right of the South African people as a whole to self-determination, as manifested in this Constitution, does not preclude, within the framework of this right, recognition of the notion of the right of of self-determination of any community sharing a common cultural and language heritage within a territorial entity in the Republic or in any other way, determined by national legislation. Well, that's not confusing at all. Just to clarify, contemporary notions of self-determination usually distinguish between internal and external self-determination, suggesting that self-determination exists on a spectrum. Internal self-determination may refer to various political and social rights. By contrast, external self-determination refers to full legal independence or secession for the people from the larger politico-legal state. As self-determination can be the process by which people control their own life, and the Constitution does not clarify internal or external self-determination, I believe we the people can determine it to be external self-determination. And if that wasn't enough to convince you that the Constitution allows for secession, then self-determination is a core principle of international law, arising from customary international law, but also recognized as a general principle of law, and it's enshrined in a number of international treaties. If you've yet to die of boredom, well done. Almost there, lost it. For instance, self-determination is protected in the United Nations Charter and in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights as a right for all people. Congrats if you're still awake and listening. Let's move on and see what the document has to say on international law. International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Here it is. Article 1. Number 1. All people have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Number 2. All peoples may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation, based upon the principle of mutual benefit and international law. In no case may a people be deprived of its own means of subsistence. Number 3. The states parties to the present covenant, including those having responsibility for the administration of non-self-governing and trust territories, shall promote the realization of the right of self-determination, and shall respect that right in conformity with the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations. The government of the Republic of South Africa signed and ratified this covenant in January 2015. It came into force on 12 April 2015. Now we move on to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Apparently it's not the same thing. All people shall have the right to existence. They shall have the unquestionable and inalienable right to self-determination. They shall freely determine their political status, and they shall pursue their economic and social development according to the policy they have freely chosen. Article 21. All people shall freely dispose of their wealth and natural resources. This right shall be exercised in the exclusive interest of the people. In no case shall a people be deprived of it. The Republic of South Africa's government signed this charter on the 16th of March 2004, and it was ratified on 17 December 2004. We discussed the principles of who, where, why, and how. I had a look at the South African Constitution, Article 235, as well as the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and how all of this ties in to make it a possibility for the Western Cape to exercise external self-determination. As we continue with the series on Cape Independence, we'll kick off the next edition with the structure of government the independent state will make use of. And trust me when I say it's quite exciting and to the benefit of all the people in the Cape. So join me on the next episode on the road to independence. Thank you for listening.